behavior like in terms of like denominational affiliation, what people believe in, what they practice? What's the most common religion?
Catholicism.
Okay, Protestantism is the most common in the United States as a whole. Second most common is then Catholicism. Yep.
What most common?
Most common is Protestantism. Yep.
Oh, but if you took each part individually, it wouldn't be.
Right. If you took each branch of Protestantism, it wouldn't be, because then you'd have, you know, Baptist and Lutheran and Presbyterian and all that. So, okay, if they're trying to measure how devoted somebody is to a faith, what's that called?
Religiosity.
Religiosity. Yep. So what are some trends, like sociologically, that people that exhibit a high religiosity have?
Fundamentalism.
Okay, fundamentalism. So what's fundamentalism?
Strict adherence to the sacred text.
Right. So the belief that one religion's right, like the religion that they're involved in, a belief that text is like the only right text, and then also like very strict ideas about what the church should be doing. So what's something else though? Like, so people that are very religious, that are very devoted to their religion, I don't know if religious is a word, but what would they be like in terms of like behaviors that they exhibit, marriage age, divorce
Everything
rates?
you do is going to be based off of the text, obviously. So what do you mean?
Okay, so their behavior would be more based off of the text,
Off the religion.
right? So what are they going to exhibit in terms of, like, are they going to have really high poverty rates? Are they going to have high like crime rates? Are they going to have weak family ties?
Strong
No,
family
no.
ties.
Okay, stronger family ties.
It's going to save sex till marriage.
Okay, tendency to have less sexual partners over time. Divorce rate, higher or lower?
Lower.
Okay, lower, right?
Plus.
Okay. All right, what's secularization?
Straying away from religion.
Like the sacredness is going away or something.
Right, it's the process by which religious institutions lose their sway in society. So that trend has been fairly constant since the start of the Industrial Revolution. It wasn't like it just was normal, Industrial Revolution happened and then boom, religious institutions ended all their influence. But there's been a gradual decrease in the influence that they have. Okay, that leads us to the section on education and medicine. So the chapter review for that section, if you're using the text to study, starts on page number 447. So first thing says education versus schooling. What's the difference between those two?
The difference between education.
You don't need to go to school to get an education. Your parents can teach you.
Right, yeah, because education is a social institution where society provides opportunities to learn for somebody. So that could be functioning through like private tutors or homeschooling. Whereas schooling is like the formal instruction under a teacher that has some status in society. Good. We talked about tracking a little bit in class also. So using examples from West Fargo, could you explain what tracking is?
Map testing.
No, not necessarily. They might use map testing to accomplish tracking, but
Track AP classes, developmental classes.
right. So AP, developmental, and regular classes, that's an example of tracking. So you're placing kids in groups based on their skill level. Good.
Shack is also another one, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd kind of be an example of that. Although it's a little bit of an alternative program because they don't have like a... No, yeah.
I don't know.
The core of tracking is you have a same basic course, but you
Oh, okay.
like put people on a harder one or an easier one.
Okay.
So, okay, what does literacy rate tell us?
How many people can read? and
Yeah,
write?
people that can read or write. So one of the knocks on schooling is that there's people that graduate that can't read, can't write, can't operate at a basic level. What were in class we talked about past problems in education versus modern problems in education. Remember that?
Yeah.
I wrote a list of like the top, I think it was 7 in, was it 1940? And then I wrote the top 7 problems in like 1995, okay? So what were the differences between those?
Chewing gum was
Yeah.
a problem in 1940 compared to stabbing someone.
Okay,
Everything's more violent, more like a felony instead of just a petty offense.
right. So a lot of the problems in education, the trend has been like problems in bigger society have shifted into the school system also, right? Whereas in the past, you would have issues of individuals doing largely like smaller things, like running in the hall, not raising their hand when they're supposed to talk, stuff like that, that were still considered by many to be signs of disrespect, right?
Yeah.
But now it's more of a threat to like actually physically damaging somebody. Okay? How does education, like the system, the bureaucracy, how do critics say that that helps to cause some of the problems in education today?
It makes impersonal relations between students and teachers. It makes the students more like a number instead of a person.
Okay? Anything else?
What was the question?
How does the bureaucratic setup, critics argue that bureaucratic setup in education, remember with the bureaucracy, the idea is you have specialization of tasks, right? So that something can get done more efficiently. That's the idea. You also have a lot of formal written communications and then complex, well not complex rules, but standardized rules that everybody's supposed to follow, right? We talked about elements of a bureaucracy in like chapter 5. You guys remember that? So some critics argue that applying that to schooling is bad, applying it to the education system is bad for a number of reasons. Nate pointed out a couple of them, that it makes students like more of like a number, that their education's impersonalized. But what are some other problems with that bureaucratic system?
What about like students that aren't passing? Like they expect if you're a certain age, you're supposed to be in this grade. If you're 15, you're supposed to be in like 10th grade. And if you fail a class, they start not caring about you anymore. They only care about the people that are in the grade they're supposed to be in.
Right, so inflexibility is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Treating everybody the same, people being treated impersonally, etc. Good. Okay, we also talked about merit pay a little bit in class. First of all, what is merit pay?
Pay based on the success of the classes.
Right, so it's pay not necessarily just based on the success of the class, but it'd be paying teachers based on some performance standard. So some of what in the media and in politician speeches has been argued in terms of what to do with merit pay is based on like student test scores and student performance, but they also might include like evaluations by principals and other factors as well, okay? So what are some things that are in favor of that? Some arguments in favor of that.
Teachers work harder.
Okay, yeah, by providing an incentive, it'll make teachers want to work harder. What else?
Devotion towards the job. Like teachers will be like more devoted to actually spend time and do like what you're doing with the review sessions. They'll actually feel like they should do the review sessions.
Okay, so that's like an incentive too. One of the other arguments for merit pay is that it's like morally right. It's like you're rewarding the good teachers, where if people aren't that good, they wouldn't make as much money and it would discourage them from staying in education, right? Okay, what are some critiques to that?
It allows teachers, well, it doesn't allow them, but it incentivizes some teachers to cheat to try to get better performance standards.
Yeah, so if, for example, they did a thing, some people have proposed that your pay should be tied to like the GPA of kids in your class, right? So if they did that, you could just give everybody A's and you would get paid more, right?
Yeah.
Whereas some teachers that their classes are a little harder, but they're still good teachers, they would in effect be punished by that system, okay?
So some students, no matter how hard you try, just aren't gonna care.
Right.
So I mean, you could spend hours with them, but they're just not gonna pay attention.
Okay, so there's problems outside of the classroom that influence student performance as well. Okay, good. We also talked about year-round school. What's the main argument that you see people presenting in terms of having year-round school?
We're falling behind other countries and we're losing our top spot in the industrialized world.
Right. So other countries do really well, and they have like year-round school, so we should do it too. Okay, we talked about violence. Grade inflation is the tendency for grades to rise over time. So one of the articles in the text that talked about how in the 60s, students entering college, like their average grade was like C plus, B minus. And now if you apply to college and your average grade is like a B minus, are you gonna have good scholarships? You're gonna be able to get in? No, it's gonna be a lot harder. I just mentioned some of the issues in education. School choice and homeschool. School choice is based on something called like a voucher system, right? So the idea with that is that individuals would be able to choose which school they'd want to go to, and that would force schools to improve because there'd be competition. So now in public school, if you're in West Fargo and you want to go to public school, this is your only option, right? Otherwise, if you want to go to a different school, you have to open enroll somewhere else. There's a process to go through that. You have to go to private school, but then you have to pay for it. A voucher system would allow public dollars to be shifted wherever you go as a student. Okay? If we look at health standards in the US versus the world, overall, is the US more healthy than the rest of the world or less healthy?
Or
Overall, more. There are a few exceptions. One obvious exception is in what? Obesity rates are pretty bad. Anything else?
smoking?
Yeah, substance abuse in general, the US has a decent problem with. So, what are some things like in the United States today? What are some of the leading causes of like death or health concerns?
Heart disease.
Heart disease is the main cause of death, yep. What are some other major causes of death?
Accidents.
Cancer, accidents, strokes, okay. Let's see. What's the idea with socialized medicine?
The argument is that everybody should be able to get medicine when they need it, and so the government should kind of subsidize that, so then people that can't afford it can still get medicine.
Okay. So with socialized medicine, somehow there'd be funds collected from the people through taxes or something. That funds would go into a pool that then would go out to people that need healthcare. That's the idea. So a variety of countries throughout the world have this, some don't. The US is moving more towards this system. Nate mentioned some of the arguments in favor of it, that people that don't have healthcare access, if you take the taxes, in essence, you could provide for everybody. What are some arguments against that?
Somebody may not use it, so you're paying for somebody else's medical bills.
Okay, you're paying for other people. What, anybody
waiting-
else?
More waiting lines.
Okay, longer lines, because you're adding more people to the system. Good. What else?
There's less doctors available.
Okay, yeah, or doctors would stay the same, but you're adding so many more people, so in effect, you can't get access to them. Good. Okay, we also talked about the concepts of status and role in education and medicine. So, from like a SI perspective, how does your behavior change if, let's say, like you walk into the doctor and you're waiting to see the doctor and you see somebody and you think that it's like just an assistant, it's not really the doctor, and then you find out, oh, it really is the doctor. What, would you change your behavior at all, or
Someone.
some people would?
Yeah.
How so?
It's the sick role. Like if somebody has more power to do something, they'll change it to get what they want, depending on how much power somebody else always has.
Okay,
Well, what is